Someone You Should Know, a program about people you know and even more that you don't. Hosted by Stuart Sax, veteran, husband, father, and grandfather. Now, here's your host, Stuart Sax.
Well, I welcome you all back to another episode of Someone You Should Know. Very glad to have you with us. And I hope at this time of the year, wherever you are, you're keeping nice and warm. It's hard to believe we are located, that my studio at least is down in Dallas, Texas. And we have been under ice for the last 5 days trying to get clear. So I'm speaking to the choir here because I'm sure that all of you all over the country that are following the show and everything are also dealing with some of this winter weather. So stay warm, have a hot drink and everything, sit back, relax. You're going to enjoy today's show. And we are brought to you by Christine Dean, the networking diva. I tell you about her every show. She has been the producer of this show and the sponsor of this show forever. And there's a reason for it. It's because she's a master at what she does. And whether you're looking to set up a website or you want to just bring your business to the next level, you want to connect with other people within your industry or bring new people into doing what you're doing, you need to have Christine Dean on your side. Reach out to her for a free consultation. Christine Dean, thenetworkingdiva.com. Thank you very much, Christine. And I hope you're staying warm too. Today, we're going to be talking with a young lady who I'm very, very impressed with. And I'm very glad I was able to connect with her because she has really led two different lives. And both of them have been very challenging. And well, I really want for you to meet her and interact with her. I welcome to the show Ashlea Dillard, who is a wonderful young lady from Boulder, Colorado. Welcome to the show, Ashlea.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me, and I'm excited for the show.
You know, I was just when I connected through we both belong to the podcast network, and that's how I found about you. And I thought, this is a lovely lady who is a former firefighter, EMT, and I mean, I am always impressed with people that are in the first responder career because. I guess the first question I would throw at you is, when did you realize that you wanted to work in that career? Because it's a very challenging career. And what was the impetus for you to say, I want to be a firefighter?
My story is a little different than a lot of people's stories because it's often a generational thing. So it's usually, well, my dad was a firefighter and his dad and his dad. And so that becomes very common to see. But for me, I didn't really have any background in being a first responder or experience with it. It came from me in getting connected in with a local fire department where I was actually doing some of the physical training, like that mental health, like through yoga and some of that kind of stuff, that I got connected in with the fire department and was given the opportunity to do some of that work with them. And that really exposed me to like what this whole job was about. Because of course we always see the fire department and it's cool, it looks awesome, but I didn't really know until I kind of got immersed into the culture. And I've always had a big affinity and a passion for medicine, so I was actually headed down the nursing route initially, but when I spent some time at the fire station and with those folks, I came to realize that this was a pretty stinking cool job where you can do, I mean, gosh, so many different things, from medicine to, different crazy scenarios you could never even come up with. And I always valued a job that was never the same. Like I never wanted to work a regular 9 to 5 where you were doing the same thing over and over. So I really got drawn into it that way and drawn into, being around a really close group of people and being immersed in that special kind of environment. And so that was kind of the catalyst into me moving forward with getting the education that I needed to, taking the classes, becoming an EMT, and then starting to work on the ambulance, and then eventually going to paramedic school, becoming a paramedic, and then getting hired by the fire department where I worked as a fire paramedic. So yeah, my story is a little bit different, but just by, I guess, exposure and immersion into it is how I got into the game.
Growing up, were you always up for challenges like this?
I have always, yes, I've always liked the challenge aspect of things. And I've always liked to take on new and different things. So kind of finding stuff that would push me to, other levels, whether it was physically or mentally as well. My parents would always say, like, you've done enough schooling for all of us. That's true too. Is I just love learning and I love doing new and different things. So yeah, it was felt like a natural thing to do.
I said at the outset that have always been impressed by those that go into first responder, into either fire or police work. And as you said, yeah, that sounds kind of like a lot of fun, but there's a fun aspect of it, and there's that camaraderie that you have with your fellow firefighters. But when that alarm goes off in the firehouse, the fun aspect is off the shelf, and I mean it's serious time, and that can happen at any time. You're like a doctor; you're on call constantly. What I'm curious, what is it like inside when you are sitting, maybe watching TV or having a meal with your fellow firefighters in the firehouse, and all of a sudden that bell goes off? What is the rush that goes through you that says it's time to perform?
And that's a good, interesting question. And I would say it progresses and develops over time. So as a brand new, like in the fire service, you start out after going through fire academy, which is usually a pretty intense 16-week academy where you're getting trained to
It's
learn
almost like
what
going
to
in the
do.
military.
Yeah,
Yeah,
similar in ways.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
not quite like that. I don't like to compare them too much because that's a whole different animal and really offer respect for that.
Right.
Um, but it is similar. Like you're learning the skills and you're learning, all these things that you need to prepare for in theory. And then you get out of that and you become a probationary firefighter. We called it a probie. And in your probie year, of course, like you are kind of that wide-eyed deer, like so excited because everything is so new. So you're every situation, every call. I can remember back the very first, like, I think it was even just a smoke alarm that went off, and I was jazzed, because you're putting on your gear and you're like, this is it, this is really happening. You like it all feels very real in that moment when that first tone comes down for your very first call
Yeah.
when you're sitting in the back seat of the fire truck. Um, but then I have to say, like, it is just an interesting beast in itself where over time, a lot of that starts to wear off and you start to kind of like your excitement or that big thrill, the adrenaline rush starts to really wear down. And I think that, of course, what we would call the big calls, right? Like the structure fires or um, kind of those crazy scenarios always kind of gave you those butterflies or amped you up. But man, after that is like just the repetition over time because we're running a lot of calls and it could be everything from picking someone up off the ground to a car accident to taking a transport to the hospital is you kind of start to lose that big adrenaline dump and it just becomes um second nature. So it's just kind of, I found that over the course of my careers, the longer I was in it, the less like that like drop in your stomach or that big adrenaline rush really hit you. And it's just interesting how you become so um used to it that it's just not that big response like it was at the very beginning.
Do you ever get used to it? I mean, really, do you get so used to those calls that I mean, do they diminish in importance to you in any way?
I think you do get used to it. I think because it just becomes, like you said, it just becomes your job. So, like with anything, repetition over time becomes more familiar. Um, Desensitized, I would say it depends on the person and depends on the experiences. I would say for me, death became very desensitized of you just seeing death multiple times in a 48-hour shift becomes normal, which in every other case, most other cases, that's not normal at all. But like that kind of stuff becomes normalized. And so I think you do get desensitized in a way to those situations or things that happen just because you're exposed to it so many times, so frequently that your brain just gets very used to it.
Well, I want to come back to what you have done within the as a paramedic and as a firefighter and all, but what you have done in that career led you to what you do now, and that is to help others that have been in this field, this career, and all to cope. And that's what I was kind of that was the word I was looking for is being able to cope with the career and all. Now you recognize from the inside what it's like to be a firefighter and a paramedic and to be put into these situations. And now you have turned around to pay that forward to help others cope with it. Where was that decision and why did you make that decision to now you know turn from, I guess, what we would say the boots on the ground to helping other boots?
Yeah, I like that. I Early on in my career, when I was going through fire academy, I was struggling with some things with my own mental health, and had lost a close friend and a crewmate to suicide right before I went to fire academy. And what I realized was that although my brain had told me that I had effectively processed it and I was okay with it, I realized when my body and my mind were being placed in stressful situations that that was not the case. That there were things that were coming up that were not necessarily directly linked to him, but my nervous system and my mind were experiencing the same kind of response in what I had in that situation. And so I didn't know what was going on. I couldn't at the time, I didn't have the tools or the understanding to know. It was just like, why does this keep happening? Why do I keep freaking out over these things? And so I was given the good, amazing opportunity to go seek some therapy and some very specialized therapy. One of those things being hypnosis, particularly, of where the facilitator hypnotherapist that I worked with, who also became a bit of a mentor, helped me through a lot of that stuff to be able to do my job and to do things effectively without having that stress response to it. But he really challenged me in our sessions and asked me what my backup plan was. And at the time, I
Mm.
was like the go-getter. I don't need a backup plan. I'm going to do this for 20 years and then I'll retire just like everybody does. And he really, really encouraged me. He said, "You have a very powerful story. You have a big gift for caring for others, and you need to share that gift, and you need to think about like what would you want to do if you were not going to do this job for 20 years, or if you get hurt and you aren't able to do this job, what do you want to do?" And he's like, "You need to go into helping others." So I listened, like, after some resistance, I did listen, and I decided to go back to school, to finish my undergrad and then my master's in mental health and clinical counseling. So I was doing that while I was still online. And at the end of schooling for your master's, you have to go through an internship and practicum, which is
Hmm.
pretty like it's a lot of hours that you have to do. And so what was happening was I was working my 48-hour shift online at the fire department, and then I was going to clinicals to practicum after that and working like 3 or 4 days. So I was working almost like 7 days a week in two very high demanding um fields essentially, like
Simultaneously.
exactly. And
Hmm.
I was feeling a lot of burnout, a lot of compassion fatigue, a lot of just w- not really sure, like being pulled two different directions and trying to like really figure out what am I supposed to do moving forward. And I started to get a lot of like I wouldn't say like necessarily bitterness, but just some kind of resentment towards the job, just being frustrated or not really being excited, being really really tired all the time, and seeing some aspects of my life being affected in other ways. My physical body was starting to show some signs and symptoms, my relationship, like just things like that, where it was time to really like sit with myself and decide what was going to be best for me for sure, and what did I want to do moving forward, because once you're done with your schooling you have to still continue your training for 2 years as a provisionally licensed practitioner that requires 1,500 hours, so you have to stay in this like pretty aggressive rhythm of seeing people in order to become fully licensed as a clinician. So I decided, like, okay, I think it's time. And I took the plunge and made the decision and um, decided. One of my lieutenants had said, like, this is like, we love this. We're supporting it. You're going to be a different kind of helper now. I got a lot of amazing support from people. And of course, like, I got also a lot of people who thought I was throwing away my entire career. How could I do that? Walk away from all of this. But it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. Like, I wouldn't go back and change it for anything because you
Well, but
said I get to do
your
it.
career in firefighting really was the foundation for you to build on the new career, the new direction you were taking. And I can certainly understand that somebody that all of a sudden decides they want to go into a brand new career that they have no previous knowledge of. That's one thing. I mean, all of a sudden the doctor decides he wants to be an accountant. One may not have anything to do with the other, but to be able, for you to be able to approach a firefighter uh, who is maybe having some issues that are with depression or mental illness, and to be able to look that person in the eye to say, I have been where you are. I mean, I have to believe that that is definitely a building block for you to create this career that you're in now.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say it's the cornerstone of the relationship building, really. And it's what
Yeah.
I found that's been such a gift, Stuart, is like it's not just with firefighters, like of course it's with other EMS providers, but it's with like law enforcement too, and even military members, is like, even though yes, our experiences are not the same, is but we find that commonality in like being a public servant, and like what that the toll that it takes on you as an individual and your family and the schedule, like all of those things that you can find that commonality with, has been like the most impactful thing. Think because there's a lot of people out there doing a lot of good work in mental health, but like this culture, these people are just different. We're just wired different. Our and the regular tactic or getting people to understand a lot of the background can be a struggle point. And so that's why a lot of them don't seek mental health, because they can't find somebody that understands what this is like, and they just want to give everybody a PTSD diagnosis and some medications, and it's like that's not solving any problems. Like that's not the end all be all answer.
Masking it. Yeah.
Yeah, so
It's a band-aid approach.
it is. Yeah, it's that symptom management type mentality, which I'm definitely not about. So,
You mentioned post-traumatic stress, and I am intimately knowledgeable of it because I suffer from it myself. I'm a Vietnam veteran, and so I carry those demons with me, and sometimes it is difficult to manage that. you as a professional now dealing with people, do you find that you have this kind of sixth sense that when you see someone that is in a depressive state or is going through some type of a mental challenge, that you have the ability to say, I think this is a person that I need to reach out to and put my arms around?
Yeah, I think I I believe like I was born with that gift from the get-go. I always used to my parents would always tell me like you're a sensitive kid like and I didn't understand really what that was until, later in my life and understanding of how I really have like a big heart for people and I really like feel things on a deep level with people. And I think that intuitive nature that is wound into my DNA is a gift that allows me to do this job in such a unique way where like it's almost palpable. You can feel what people are feeling or even like hear them talking and can identify what they actually believe about themselves of, like I'm broken, there's something wrong with me, I'm not lovable, like whatever's coming up underneath is like you get that intuition in your gut that you just know. And it just, yeah, it just opens up the door for such impactful work that it truly is a gift to be able to do that.
And sometimes we as a society don't want to get involved. We see a friend that used to be a very open, talkative, friendly person who is now a stay-at-home shut-in, and they're reclusive. They don't want to talk. And that's a dangerous situation because that's what leads to depression. And very often, too often, depression leads to suicide. So, you know, what can you tell the people that are watching and listening to you right now? What are some of the signs to look for when you see a friend that you think is maybe just a little bit off center and might need to reach out to somebody like Ashlea Dillard?
Mhm. I think if you first get that message in your gut, if you're even asking that question, is that you should do that. If that question is even crossing your mind of should I check in with them? Yes, you should. Because even if like nothing is going on, like it's good to know that you have people who are checking in on you regardless. So I would
Right.
say, yeah, first, if that question is even in your mind, then do it. No harm comes from that. Two, I would say a lot of these things show up in sneaky ways where it's behaviors that start to change. So, and you see this a lot out in different work environments too, as somebody's work performance starts changing. Maybe they start showing up late for work, or they're calling in sick more often,
Mhm.
or they're taking longer to respond back for some reason if that's been abnormal for them. Is starting to pay attention to some of those little signs that creep in to be like, "Hey, like, I noticed you're not showing up to this stuff anymore," or, "You've been late to work the last few times," because we forget that there's all this life that happens out that we don't always know about. And so is it that they are in a depression, or is it that their kid is going through something that they're having to deal with too? Or are they going through some kind of health challenge that they haven't told anybody about? Is
Right.
realizing that if you don't ask, like if you don't make the effort, it's up to them on how they want to respond to it. But you can make a huge difference by just saying, I'm here for you. I don't need to know everything that's going on.
You
And
can
I'm not
open
gonna
up to
have
me
it.
if you want to. Otherwise,
Yeah.
I'm two ears that are willing to listen and a
Yep.
shoulder for you to lean on. And you're absolutely right, Ashley, because one thing that people I find in my life and my dealings, that when I have come in contact with people who sometimes are depressed and ultimately find out that they are or were depressed, they become masters in masking it. They will go out of their way to make you believe that they do not feel depression. They do not feel post-traumatic stress. That they're okay. Hey, everything's fine. Yeah, come on, we'll go out and have a beer or whatever. But there is something. There's a sense that you find that it's more than that. And that's when you have to be the kind of person that follows the old adage, see something, say, do something, say something. uh Find someone like yourself to say, you know what, I have a friend that I would just love for you to just talk to her. Just, have one session. You're my friend and I want you to stay my friend. So please talk to Ashley for an hour and just see. And then let you, the professional, say, thank you very much for coming in to see me. I think you are a great person. And if you want to talk to Stuart, fine. But if you want to talk to me, my door is open. And having said that, folks, ashleadillard.com is her website. And I encourage you to not only look at the website yourself and see what that website offers, but also share that website with your friends, especially if you have anybody, a friend, a neighbor, a relative that might be in need of someone to talk to. And of course, if they are a first responder working within your cities and towns and everything, that's her area of expertise. But I think it's fair to say that if anybody is in need of some counseling and everything, that your door is open, your phone is available to reach out. You are located in Colorado, but do you deal with clients all over the country?
Yeah, there's a few workarounds what we can do. Everything can be done telehealth wise. So yeah, that's one of the blessings of, the whole 2020 adventure is a
Yeah,
lot of stuff
yeah.
moved online. So there really is an incredible amount of resources available. And I always tell people is like, it's okay if like I'm not your cup of tea. It's okay if you have to find somebody that you connect with and that you can um take the journey with and be invested in it. And I have lots of amazing colleagues too, and lots of different people who specialize in stuff. So the first step is always the hardest step, is just that
Sure.
reaching out. But like just keep trying until you find something that resonates with you, that connects with you, because there is a lot of incredible and so many different kinds of modalities of therapy out there now too, that are way different than your traditional idea is. So there's really something out there for everybody.
In the information that I started reading and learning about you, you have a phrase that you use that was kind of that transition between being a firefighter and a paramedic and going into what you're doing. And you say it was a period of your life that you call the Great Dismantling. And I want you to expound upon that a little bit because was it just a boing moment that you had, or was this something that gradually brought you to this great dismantling of yourself and reassessing what your future was going to be?
Mhm. Yes, I'm putting it out there because the more that I put it out there and say it, then I will do it. But I eventually want to write a book about this. So coming soon, dot, dot, dot. But um it
To be
has been,
continued.
yes, exactly. It has been, this has been a journey unfolding over years now. Whether or not I saw it starting several years ago, it was. And it was this starting to see things in my life that were no longer serving me, or areas of myself where I wasn't free, really. And I'd say it's escalated definitely over the past several years. And I'm still on the journey too. That's the thing, is like I have by no means arrived. But it's this taking apart. You mentioned masks earlier, but it's this
Mhm.
uh taking off and looking at all these masks that I've been wearing, all these identities, or everything from being a firefighter to who I thought I was or what I believed of myself, and really questioning it and saying like, is this the truth? Is this something that is serving me now? Is this a story that I want to live with, or am I done with this? And a lot of times I've been done with it because it has caused more pain and suffering in my own life in ways. And so that has been this great dismantling, is taking apart everything that you thought you knew about yourself, everything that has been dictating your life or you've been living under, and it's questioning it and it's wrestling with it and it's deciding, do I want to take this with me moving forward? These beliefs, all of these things. So yeah, it's been a wild journey. It was definitely not just a light bulb moment. It's been in the years of making, and still continues, but I'm here for it. So
What is it about us as individuals that we find so difficult to admit that maybe we're just not running on all cylinders? That that we just don't feel right, and we maybe know what's wrong, but are we just too proud as human beings to say, yeah, there's something wrong, and I really should reach out to somebody?
I think there's two aspects of that answer. First part is I think there's a lot of people, myself included, at times that weren't sick enough of our suffering. Like we were not to the point
Mm.
where things, like you're just done with it. And I think that leads into the second point of why I think people hesitate to reach out is what I refer to as a secondary gain, is what do you get out of having your problem? And looking at that and being radically accountable for this is difficult for people to say, oh no, I actually like do get something out of my depression. If it gives me the pass to just lay in bed or to not do anything or to not shower or not go to work or to be dysfunctional in my relationships or whatever it is that can be very, very strong in people, that having their problem, it's almost like preferring the hell that you know over the heaven that you don't, because it's so
Mm.
familiar. You get something out of it and you are not sick enough of the suffering. So you're not willing to go through the dismantling, willing to go through all of that because you just live in the hell that you know. And I honestly think that's where most people land with it, is that they just don't want to do it any different way, even though they are miserable and they're not living really any kind of quality of life, but it's the hell that they know. So they want to stay there. That's my take on it.
You are so spot on, Ashley, because, among the veteran and the first responder community and all, I used the word earlier, demons. And sometimes you are afraid of your demons, and eventually sometimes you become complacent with living with them, and they become your companions. And that can be a dangerous path. Um, again, very simple website, folks, ashleadillard.com. There's a wealth of information, and you also have done a little bit about what I've been doing for a long time now. You turned it into a podcast, and you've been doing podcasts on YouTube and Spotify and other platforms, to share some of this information either just by yourself or with guests. And you can find information on that website too. And you do have a second. That's the website, Sit Around the Fire podcast, which I told you, I love your homepage there. That
Thank
is
you.
just so welcoming. But,
Thank you.
Sit around the fire means a lot. It's got a double entendre there, because having been a firefighter, it kind of raises that image of, from being around the fire, how to deal with it and how to control it. And I commend you because, you're a young lady. You're a young lady who has had a very, very exciting first career that you now have expanded into an extended career. And I think that's what makes it important for anybody that you would come in contact with, whether you're addressing a large group and talking about what you're doing, or you're talking with clients one-on-one. You have gone back and you have studied and you have your degree and your master's degree, and so you know of what you're talking. And I think that's commendable. And you also um, are a hypnotherapist. And that's something I want to touch on a little bit too. Is where does hypnotherapy come into play with helping people who are in this maybe depressed state and dealing with their mental issues? How can hypnotherapy help?
I am glad you brought it up because I love talking about it. And I love kind of putting more knowledge out there because it's such an underutilized modality that's been around for a long time. I mean, we're talking a long time ago is when
Yep.
it's been into play, but people have always had the Hollywood version of hypnotherapy, or the Vegas version, I call it, where they see the stage hypnosis and that kind of thing, which in all fairness, it is a thing. Like, it is, like, that's not just pretend, but I always like to explain to people is, and for myself, it has been the most impactful modality of work to do because we talked a little bit earlier about this idea around symptom management. And if somebody comes to see me with, let's say, anxiety, is yes, I have some tools that we can give you. You can even go on YouTube and look for some, you know, 10 effective ways to deal with anxiety, and you're going to get some tools. But that's just managing a symptom. That's not coming at the root of the problem. And that's where I really have a hard time with regular therapy, and not to discount anybody doing regular therapy or therapists, but we're not coming at the root of the problem. And so it would be a disjustice to you to say, let's just put a band-aid on it and then I'll see you again for the next 6 years while you continue to deal with your anxiety.
Or let me give you a script for some medication.
Yes.
That to me is sometimes a very dangerous approach.
Yeah, I unfortunately that becomes the common method, is when like people, you go to your practitioner, whether it's your doctor or a psychiatrist, and there's like, well, there's nothing more you can do, so here's a prescription, which I just don't buy into that mentality. So the hypnosis is an incredible modality that we can use, and it's an incredibly natural state. That's what people don't understand either, is you go into hypnosis through different times throughout the day. So if you've ever found yourself driving, from point A to point B and being like, wow, I don't even really remember that drive, or how did I get here? That's a state of hypnosis. So it's a different brainwave state. It's usually like a high beta, sometimes theta, delta, even gamma at times, brainwave state where we're able to tap into this network between your mind, particularly your subconscious mind, and your body. And your mind is able to deliver these messages through your body, and your body responds back. So whatever these memories, these beliefs, these emotions that you've been holding on to that are the default programming of how you're living your life, this is where we tap in and we do this really powerful work to transform those, or to give you a new way of doing things. So now it's not that I have to be in this fear-based mindset all the time because that's how I've always lived. Is like, no, now you can see things in a different way. You can come at it from more of an abundant standpoint, or knowing that you don't need to be in fear. You don't need to be scared of everything. Like, all these little subtleties that people don't realize how their life is actually going and being ran. That's where we do this powerful work, and it's so effective. Anything that affects the mind, which is literally everything, hypnosis can work for. So we're talking about, I mean, everything from, the big stuff, the anxiety, depression, even PTSD, all of that, to even little subtleties around behavior changes. So people who want to lose weight or stop smoking or learn how to manage their stress better, or even control your blood pressure or pain, all of that can be done through hypnosis because your mind is incredibly powerful. And that's what we get to do through the work of hypnosis. And it's very safe. It is very, very effective. And I've just found that for me in my practice, I got tired of just being the symptom manager. I was like, I don't want to do this. I have to find a different way. And this has really been the golden ticket in getting people this lasting change and finally getting to the root of these things and pulling them out of the ground so they're no longer issues for people in their life.
Do you have a higher level of comfort in your life now, knowing what you have gone through in both careers?
Yeah, I think the spot where I'm at now, through both things, having gone through or going through, is like really how to bring peace into your life. Like, what does that actually mean? And how do you choose to live with peace in all circumstances,
Mm-hmm.
unconditional to whatever is going on outside of you? So, despite life experiences, despite what's happening in the world, despite is like we get to choose our inner state, and it doesn't mean we're checking out or we're, not aware of what's going on, but we're choosing how we feel in this power of realizing like, no, I get to choose what I think, I get to choose what I feel, and I choose to experience peace despite what else is happening. And that gives you such a different framework in a way to see things that I think makes you know that you're capable to get through anything when you can be in that state. So that's what I think what's taught me the most out of both things so far. Like the teachings are still unwinding, but yeah, that's the biggest lesson I think that I've gotten to so far.
Yeah, I like the way you say so far, because that's where you said earlier, dot, 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 that there is probably a book down there coming all that that's also going to be part of that my life so far, the next chapter of Ashlea Dillard.
Yeah.
Ashley, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to share your careers, your experiences, your knowledge, and your gift. And I do believe that there are things you can learn, but sometimes you are gifted to go in the direction that you've gone. And I end my show each week with a quote from Oscar Wilde: "Be yourself, because everyone else is already taken."
I
And
love that.
I think you can relate to it and know exactly what I'm talking about. So thank you again, ashleadillard.com. Visit the website, and also pass along that website to anyone else that you think might be able to become a better person because of it, and they can reach out to Ashlea. So go out and make it a great day. Thank you for watching Someone You Should Know. Come back again for the next episode and all. And again, a big, big thank you to Ashlea Dillard, my very, very special guest. All the best to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's such a blessing.
Someone You Should Know.